Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Friday, July 1st, and I'm Mimi Brown.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, a Virginia lawmaker is working on a proposal to help curb the sale of semi-automatic weapons. Meanwhile, Black borrowers say policymakers have ignored the racial and economic evidence of inequality in student loan debt. Then, a California judge is expected to rule this month on a decision on how much restitution is due to the city of Santa Cruz. We have those details and more.
Plus, Viola Davis shares her daily affirmations. She tells her daughters on a daily basis, and we have the messiest moments so far of the year. Soulmates, we have all that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Well, critical race theory is a piece of the Republican Party's strategy to take over Congress in the midterm elections. Book banning is also part of the battle in the red states like Texas, where local school boards and libraries are deciding to remove books that are written by African Americans and LGBTQ authors. Well, here to discuss the Republican Party's use of race in the midterms is GOP strategist Melik Abdul. He's in Washington. Hi, Malik.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So I wanted to start off with Glenn Youngkin. He was able to win the Virginia governor's office by rallying parents frustrated with the school board over mask mandates. But he also used critical race theory as the boogeyman. And CRT isn't even taught in that school district or many others around the United States. As a Black Republican, does it make you uncomfortable when the GOP plays the race card to get votes?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. If the discussion is critical race theory, I think we should be honest and really talk about the fact that most of what we're talking about is not critical race theory itself. We're really talking about a category, or if you will, a component of critical race theory, where we're saying that race is a social construct. We do know that that's something that's true. If you look at Virginia, if you look at many of these places around the country, even though they say that they're banning critical race theory itself, they're not banning critical race theory. In most places around the country, it's not being taught at all. So from my perspective, not even from a Black Republican perspective, I don't think this is something that Republicans are using as in a race issue to win the midterms. I think what we're seeing is that people are paying attention to what's being taught in schools, and we're really focused on anti-racist training. Critical race theory became the buzzword, but what Republicans and actually what even Democrats are talking about preserving in schools is this sort of anti-racist diversity, equity, and inclusion training. That is what's problematic. Critical race theory itself is not as problematic.
You know, your party always talks about how it wants to diversify, but they continue to do things that push Black voters away. Does it make it hard for you, though, to convince other people that the GOP is the way to go?
Well, actually, if you look at the numbers, and I'm a data guy, so I like looking at analytics. If you look at what happened for all of the conversation about Donald Trump being racist and the heightened racism or white supremacy during his time in office, what we saw is that Donald Trump actually increased his percentages with Blacks, with Hispanics, and even Asians. And we're seeing now, going into the midterm cycles, that despite all of the discussion about critical race theory and voter suppression and police reform, that Republicans, as far as the Black vote, Black and Hispanic vote, we're actually looking to have a very good midterm cycle. So I don't think that race itself will be a huge issue. Well, I don't think that Democrats will be able to use race in the same way that they have when it comes to making us feel as if Republicans have been railing against Black people. I don't think that that's going to work this election cycle.
You know, you just said that Donald Trump is increasing his turnout with African Americans and Hispanics. Where are you seeing that? Because everything that I'm seeing is it's actually going in the opposite way.
Well, if actually you can go back and look, even starting in 2020, we know that there was a Catalyst study that actually came out, and they showed that Donald Trump increased his percentage with the Black vote. It was the largest increase, I think, since the Dole-Kemp race of 1996. So that is evidence right there that what we're, the conversations that we have a lot in media doesn't reflect what's happening on the ground. If we look at numbers, and that's why I say I'm a data guy, there's been many reports that Blacks, as far as the Republican Party is concerned, both Blacks and Hispanics are moving for the midterm cycle. That doesn't say anything for 2024, but when it comes to the midterm cycle, when you look at the actual numbers, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, we're seeing that there's definitely been a shift for Hispanics and Blacks for this midterm cycle.
You know, there may be a shift happening, but I think that's more towards, people are upset about rising gas prices, inflation, and things like that. I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with Republican policies.
No, I actually agree with that. And that's one of the benefits of being, whether you're an incumbent, you get blamed for certain things, or when you're not in office, you're able to use certain things. I don't think that this is just totally about, the Republican Party or how great we are, in the same way that Joe Biden didn't win because he was so great. He won because Trump was so terrible, and how he communicated things and a lot of those other things that he did definitely during the pandemic. Donald Trump hurt himself more so than Joe Biden just ran this fantastic campaign and everybody was in love with him. We're seeing now, even with the malaise around the country, that there wasn't this just widespread support for Joe Biden.
I'll have to give that to you there. But what are some of the things that the GOP can do to improve the standing, though, within the Black community?
I think we can continue to talk about the things that matter. As we're finding out, we know that kitchen table issues matter. So right now with inflation, right now with some of the things that they're doing in Congress to address HBCUs, I know that Joe Biden is doing some of those things to address that from I guess you could say a climate change perspective, where our HBCUs are being funded. They're able to participate in these type of energy consortiums. And I think that those are good things, but talk about the things that they're doing in Congress. We'll be led to believe that nothing is happening in Congress if Democrats don't do it. But I think that they should take a page out of my home state Senator Hyde Smith and talk about the specific things that they're doing where Black people are impacted. There is no Black law, if you will, or Black legislation coming out of there, but there are things that the Joe Biden administration is doing that Republicans are voting for that benefit the Black community.
So we're running out of time, Melik, but I want to ask you, what do you think will be the largest driver of to get people to the midterms, to get people to the election this midterm season? What do you see as that biggest issue that's going to help people get there and make that decision this November?
I may have my presidents wrong, but I think it may have been Reagan who said that it's the economy stupid. I think the economy is exactly what's going to drive people, whether you're on the left or the right. When you're paying much more money for your gas prices, and we're going into stores and you're seeing that the price that you paid for chicken this year is different from last year, you're going to vote on those issues. And typically what happens, we hold the person in office accountable, whether it's their fault or not.
That is absolutely true. Melik Abdul is a GOP strategist. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Wonderful interview, Mimi. I learned a lot about that. So a Virginia lawmaker is working on a proposal to help curb the sale of semi-automatic weapons. Congressman Don Byers is working on a new bill that would propose placing a 1,000% tax on any type of semi-automatic firearm. The legislation would not ban the weapon, but the tax would make it difficult for many potential buyers to purchase one. And since the bill would be a revenue measure, it could be introduced through the reconciliation process, which would only require approval from 50 senators instead of 60. The cost of a semi-automatic weapon can range from about $5,000 to $2,000. The exact tax would mean that it would be an additional cost of $5,000 on a $500 weapon.
Black borrowers say policymakers have ignored the racial and economic evidence of inequality in student loan debt, and most feel canceling all student debt is the best solution to the crisis. That's according to a report by the Education Trust, the report which focuses on the perspectives and life experiences of nearly 1,300 Black borrowers, likening these disparities to Jim Crow. Many respondents believe student loans were not set up to give Black Americans financial freedom, and they disrupt their quality of life and mental health. So other key findings from the study Jim Crow Debt, how Black borrowers experience student loans, were that most Black borrowers do not believe student loans are good debt. They believe income-driven repayment plans are lifetime debt sentencing, limiting student loan debt cancellation harms Black borrowers the most, and the majority will prefer the government to cancel their loans rather than offer lower interest rates or free tuition.
A California judge is expected to rule this month on a decision on how restitution is due to the city of Santa Cruz after two men damaged Black Lives Matter mural. Brandon Bochat and Hagen Warner are accused of defacing the mural last summer. They face charges of felony vandalism, reckless driving, and hate crimes. They've pled not guilty on all charges and remain free on bail. Now, Santa Cruz police arrested the men last July following an investigation into the vandalism. Police say the two men took turns driving their truck over the large mural and defiling it with tire marks. The BLM mural was painted in September of 2020. It sits in front of the Santa Cruz City Hall. It's privately funded artwork that was created in the wake of George Floyd in his killing in Minneapolis. Prosecutors estimate it will cost between $103,000 to $114,000 to repair.
A Virginia county has settled a federal lawsuit filed by a man who says county police violated his civil rights during an arrest. Lamonta Gladney filed a federal lawsuit against Fairfax County police officer Tyler Ryan Timberlake. Gladney says that Timberlake violated his civil rights by tasing him without cause and needling on his back and neck and then arresting him with a cause. The events that led up to the encounter happened on June of 2020. Now, Gladney says that the crisis started when he went to help a female friend when she began experiencing some kind of medical distress, and he went outside to get help. Body camera footage of the incident shows Gladney unarmed and pacing in a circle, trying to communicate without success to the emergency personnel on the scene. Now, as they try and get him to get sound and understand what he's trying to say, Officer Timberlake arrives on the scene, immediately pulls out his taser and fires it at Gladney. Timberlake's attorney later said that he misidentified Gladney as another man who has warrants. As Gladney falls to the ground, the officers place his knee on the man's back and neck, smacks him in the face, and then shoots him with a stun gun. Gladney was arrested on charges of public drunkenness and resisting arrest. The charges were later dropped, but no word on how much the case was settled for. This is definitely a very sad story. So it was reported that he had some type of drug in his system, and so that's why the story says that they were having a hard time understanding what he was saying because his words were kind of slurring. And so I believe that PCP was later found in his system, which really is not important, but it's important to the story to know that that's why they could not understand what he was saying. So he was put in the prone position, and so there was one police officer that was trying to help him initially, trying to, get, and then that's when Timberlake came kind of like out of nowhere. And he said that he was just already just very aggressive, and then shoots his stun gun at the man. And, Romeo, you said this a couple times before about using like a stun gun instead of an actual gun. Like maybe there's another way to subdue a person. But this really, a stun gun, a police's stun gun is different from like a little taser that you have that's like a temporary. Yeah. This is really, it hurts a lot. It lasts for a long time. And so I really don't believe that just using a stun gun is a better way other than using a gun as a police officer.
Well, especially when you get to the scene and you just come in hot. Like the officer had no idea what was going on. He just jumped out the car and immediately tased him, immediately slapped him, put him in the prone position. Right. So I think there should be some context here to what's happening, and the fact that I'm glad the charges were dropped. He did have something in his system, but the other guy was working through it and was helping him. And it sounds like this guy just came in, and after that, everything just went
like he had no
crazy.
Patience for his job.
Yeah.
Look, these police officers are trained to do this, and sometimes you cannot de-escalate a situation right away. It may take time. The first officer was doing it correctly. He was doing that, right? Then the next guy come in. But the saddest thing is when I talk to people about this, when I'm on the phone or we're messaging, they're saying, well, thank God he could have got shot, because that's usually the first option. But we don't want to just settle for that. We want to say there's no reason to pull out a stun gun. Yes, this man may have been on drugs, may have had a mental issue. They will confirm all that. At the end of the day, there was no reason to do what you did and then put your knee on his back. So, yeah, they got work to do in the police force. All right, a homemade gun and brass knuckles were found on a California teenager accused of sending social media messages about shooting up a school and kids. The 17-year-old high school senior was arrested on charges that included criminal threats, possession of brass knuckles, and possession of an unregistered gun, commonly known as a ghost gun. The social media message did not mention a specific school. The student attended Heritage High School in Menifee, about 30 minutes south of San Bernardino.
A Texas business owner says she believes she was being harassed by a strange white man because of her race and class.
Go outside.
Your race and your class destroyed my family and my life.
My race and my class?
Yes.
So this is about race and class? What race do you think I am?
You ruined my life.
I ruined
your entire legacy of being a Christian.
Okay.
And now you're playing.
You see what this is?
You're playing.
You see what this is?
You're playing energy chess game with an individual who has nothing to do with your class.
Sir, I asked you to have a seat and fill out your paperwork, and yet you come in here and you start walking around my business, going through my windows and everything like that, saying that you wanted to take a look at the place. Not cool when I asked you to have a seat. Okay? Clearly, you could have asked me, hey, can I see around the place and see what other services you offer? But yet you took it into your own hands because you're all high and almighty because you think that you can do that.
Yeah,
you know?
Maybe you could have asked me if I wanted to be a rapper gangster in California.
Are you hearing this?
Wow. Back in May, a black spa owner in Dallas videotaped a white man after he refused to leave her business. The woman says she called police before she started to film, but they never responded. The video posted to social media show him enjoying the fact that the police did not show up. After posting the video on TikTok, the owner learned that the man is a locksmith in the area and has a history of doing this. He left after 35 minutes, but the woman says she's also called the FBI and is still waiting on assistance. Wow. This is scary.
Yeah, it is.
You know, she said that she was at her spa. She was servicing other customers. He was walking around, opening the door, frightening other people in the area, in the business. And then when you call police and then they don't show up to help you, he started mocking her and making fun of her, the fact that the police weren't coming. And it's like, when this happens to us, if we can't call police, who can we call?
You know, I just want to shout out social media because
Yes.
TikTok really emerged over the pandemic, and you know, now we're seeing TikTok be able to help people find out reasons why a scary person comes into your business. So I just want to shout out social media and people online coming together and helping her find out that this wasn't just a random attack, that this guy has a history of it and he does need to be behind bars or some kind of consequence because this is just not okay.
This could have ended so bad, so many different ways. The fact that police did not show up, and he knowing that, he could have put hands on her. And this could have been really, really bad. And you knew, we have to applaud TikTok. We all remember this, right? Saved the kid's life when he got taken away.
Yep.
He knew that signal that he learned on TikTok. So it does have its benefits. But I would say this, they have to do something about this because he feels very privileged. The fact that no one arrested him. He was able to walk away with no repercussions. He wasn't tased, right? Maybe she said it was a black man sitting in the lobby. Maybe they
Would have probably came. But look at his body language.
Oh,
he
yeah.
was just real
He's
relaxed.
He's
very
very
comfortable
relaxed.
in that space,
Absolutely.
Very comfortable.
Absolutely. So a New York jury is awarding two former state troopers $3.5 million in damages in a racial discrimination lawsuit against the agency and its former top official. Noel Nelson and Seamus Lyons alleged that they were falsely accused of stealing marijuana and cocaine from an evidence locker in 2010. Nelson says the false allegation was in retaliation for his complaints about racial discrimination. Lyons alleges he was targeted because he defended Nelson. The lawsuit alleges that officials also ignored a senior investigator with a history of alcohol abuse and a wife with an oxycodone addiction who could have been the perpetrator. Court documents show that 98 oxycodone pills were reported missing from this evidence locker that we're speaking of. Now, the senior official, who was white, retired in 2011. Both men were forced to retire and resign after they were faced with disciplinary action. The men filed the federal lawsuit in 2015. A jury awarded Lyons $2 million, $2 million, and $1.25 million to Nelson. And they both received $5,000 in punitive damages.